Welcome to the Mind Your Body podcast. My name is Jenny Helms, and I'm an emotional eating coach and marriage and family therapist. I help people address the roots of their disordered eating and body image issues.
I'm Lisa Perkins, owner of Primal Transformations. I'm a certified personal trainer and precision nutrition coach. I use a Paleo framework to help clients transform their health, body, and life.
The Mind Your Body podcast is all about empowering you to live your best life. We aim to grow a community of empowered women who are ready to transform their health and lives using a real approach that is all about getting back in touch with ourselves and not fueled by self-loathing.
This journey requires a healthy dose of humor, perspective, and self-compassion. Our goal for this podcast is to help you achieve sustainable results that you get to keep. Please remember, the following podcast is not intended to be a substitute or implied to be medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult with your healthcare provider when making changes to your diet and lifestyle.
Welcome to the show. If you're new to the Mind Your Body podcast, you can go back to episode number 1 and we introduce ourselves. We talk about what this podcast is all about. So go on back to that episode number 1 and you can learn a little bit more about that. Also, you can check us out on YouTube and see our lovely faces as we are talking to you. So you can go to our YouTube site, and that's going to be at the Mind Your Body podcast YouTube. Yep. We also have a Facebook page, the Mind Your Body podcast Facebook page. So there you can leave us messages or feedback. So go on ahead and check that out as well.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So today, what we really want to talk about is a whole foods / paleo template and why it matters on a practical level. So whether your goal is fat loss, trying to gain muscle, performance in the gym, if you're addressing an autoimmune condition or some kind of underlying health issue, PCOS, hormone imbalance, stuff like that, this kind of whole foods way of eating is going to really help you. So when I'm giving talks, typically it's about paleo. It's interesting. I basically tell them really whatever's wrong with you, this type of eating is going to get you about 80% of the way towards fixing it. So it's kind of interesting. So we're going to talk about the nuts and bolts of what a whole foods centered diet looks like, but we kind of want to set the stage for, again, why should you care about this? Mm-hmm. Even if you're not in the mindset of thinking that you want to prevent cancer 20 years down the road, you're like, but I just want to change my body now. Mm-hmm. We kind of want to talk about how you'll feel some changes immediately out of the gate. So I guess the first and most important concept is we literally are what we eat. Mm-hmm. So the foods that we take in become the building blocks of our cells, our neurotransmitters. They help with detoxification. I mean, it all really matters. So just like you wouldn't put sugar in, your gas tank and expect your car to run well, we can't put, at least by and large, junky foods into our system and expect to have, clear brain function, good, consistent energy, clear skin, all of these things that really matter to us that we don't always associate with the food that we're eating, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't often make that connection. So, yes, this way of eating is going to mitigate disease risk. It's going to lower inflammation. It's going to help detoxify your body. But if those things, you're kind of in a place where you're like, yeah, that's not going to have an immediate impact on me, then we want to talk to you a little bit. We want to get a little bit of buy-in and help you understand that very quickly you're going to have better energy.
Yep.
And we hear that all the time from our clients. Even, before the scale starts to move, any of that, they notice that their energy, where normally maybe they would have a mid-afternoon total brain slump, have to kind of crawl to the vending machine. They're like, oh my gosh, my brain worked all afternoon. That was crazy. I got home from work. I had the energy to go out for a walk with my kids. Those are changes that we don't often talk about and that have an impact on our day-to-day quality of life. So that's huge.
Yep.
Again, brain function, mental clarity is such a big deal. I mean, we are our brains.
Absolutely.
And if our brain is not working well, nothing's going to feel good in our life. So basically, the last concept is just huge for people, again, that are trying to change their body composition, is that whole foods allow us to naturally tune in to our hunger and fullness cues. Mm-hmm. It's pretty difficult if you're eating a diet largely based around protein, vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, that kind of thing, healthy fats. It's not that easy to overeat. Mm-hmm. So your body kind of naturally regulates its appetites when you're not centering your diet around foods that just literally override our fullness signals, like chips and fast food and that kind of thing. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that, but we just kind of wanted to lay the groundwork out of the gate for how this can impact you very quickly. I mean, my clients see changes within a few days. Mm-hmm. So this isn't like, I have to wait 30 days to start feeling better. You start noticing a reduction in bloating and rumbling after your meals, and, things just start to level out. And again, no, this isn't going to be, this miracle, mm-hmm. Right out of the gate, but holy cow, you'll definitely notice some differences. So, just speaking to my experience, I lost weight, not in a healthy way. And yes, maybe I got to a body composition that felt, like, okay, this is where I want to be, but I was totally at war with my body. And I was still in that place where, I'm trying to white knuckle my diet and force my body into eating a super low number of calories. And I just wasn't on my own team at all. And it wasn't until I started tiptoeing into this way of eating, for the very first time in my life, I started focusing on nourishing myself. Absolutely. It was so life-changing. It, honestly felt like a little bit of like parenting myself. It was really interesting. It was like, okay, I'm going to actually listen to what my body's telling me. Like, what is it craving? And as long as it's, within the spectrum of healthy foods, I'm going to honor that craving. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just amazing all of the positive changes that have happened from that. And we'll talk more about that, as time goes on. But this is what I see in my clients as well, that they are starting to really get self-awareness around the signals that their body is sending them. And it's shifting over to a whole foods template that helps facilitate this.
Mm-hmm. And you're right on. I think it's huge what eating whole foods can do for those hunger and satiation signals, where so many people haven't really trusted their bodies for so long. Mm-hmm. So, gaining that trust back and thinking in a way that doesn't really encourage disordered eating thinking.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it's so important that we're talking about nourishing our bodies versus becoming obsessive over the little things and calories in and calories out.
Right.
Not saying that those aren't important, and we will address that in the future, but this is where we start. Mm-hmm. And I've had clients as well where they haven't realized how much this impacts their health. Thinking of one in particular where she had a lot of issues digestively. And I don't think people talk about that very much because, it's kind of taboo in our society to say, hey, this is something I'm struggling with. Mm-hmm. And when she started eating better and she was eliminating some of the artificial sugars in her diet, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm not having these issues that I just thought were a part of being me. I thought this was a part of life.
Right.
So we're really trying to help you guys expand and just experiment, see how this changes different things for you. Right. I know that was the case for me as well. Like, I didn't realize how great life could be until I started eating whole foods and eating healthier foods, and not the non-whole foods, the packaged foods that we'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what exactly that means here in just minutes. So
But we want you to really understand that we are speaking from personal experience as well as experience working with clients. I mean, for most of my life, I definitely was not thinking about nutrient density. I wasn't thinking about nourishing myself. I was thinking about, how can I get this off my body? I will deal with health later, like some magical later, right? Yep. And if I have to suffer and starve and be grouchy and not sleep, that's just the price you have to pay.
Right.
And what we're offering you is a ticket out of that you can, absolutely nourish yourself, not feel hungry, have all of these side benefits, and still have your body composition start evolving to where you want it to be. Are we saying that this is going to get you down to a size 2? Of course not. We're not trying to predict where your body will land, and really that's not the aim of this podcast.
Right.
We're trying to help you get back on the same team with yourself and understand that if you're focusing on becoming self-aware about your body, about your own preferences. Mm-hmm. I mean, I ignored my preferences forever. Right? I mean, it sounds simple and it sounds kind of silly, but that matters. And when you're getting back on the same team with yourself and focusing on how can I nourish myself in a way that this food tastes delicious, you will be amazed at all of the positive transformations that you experience. So we kind of wanted to set the stage for that. And we're going to be pretty efficient going through kind of the nuts and bolts of this today. There's so many rabbit holes that we could go down. We could go down the sugar rabbit hole, the gluten rabbit hole, the grains, the dairy, all of this. There's, so much to talk about around this. But honestly, you need to assess where you're starting. If you're already starting with a healthy diet, then, maybe what we're offering today may not be new information for you.
Yeah. Check out our future podcast.
Exactly. And there's, lots of people speaking to this.
Yes.
But if you're starting from kind of a standard American diet, we're not going to get super tricky here. And we don't want to.
Yeah.
The goal is to start where you are, to go slowly, not overwhelm yourself, because how many times have we seen people do some kind of a paleo challenge or some 30-day thing that felt so hard and so restrictive that now forevermore they're going to associate, eating whole foods with, oh my gosh, I literally changed everything. And, we want you to have positive associations and to customize this as you go. So we're going to start with the basics. And if you have questions, please let us know. If you have, specifics or whatever that you want to know about, great.
We will do that. We will nerd out with you.
Absolutely. We will go down the rabbit holes. But for today, that's not what we're doing. So we're going to kind of just jump into this and let you know how we're defining like a whole foods template. Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
So,
yeah, I know for myself, when I started this journey, I was like, what the heck? When people say whole foods or they say nutrient density, what the heck does that mean?
Right.
So when we say whole foods, we mean we're talking vegetables, we're talking fruits, we're talking about the things that are on the outside of the aisles, in the perimeter, that aren't in boxes, the things that you know what they are, they have a name that is familiar, unless you're like a science nerd and you know the chemicals. But for most people, it's those things that you can literally see and feel and touch, and they're not in a box. Again, the vegetables, the fruits, we're talking meats that are healthfully sourced, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We're talking nuts, we're talking healthy fats, and we'll also kind of go into what that means, because I know there's a lot of confusion around what's a healthy fat. And we're talking, easy to digest grains, such as white rice.
For those who can tolerate them?
For those who can tolerate it, right? So we're talking about things that are out of boxes, that are not processed. And do you want to go further with that? Do you want to take that?
I mean, I guess, in terms of healthy fats, what we're talking about, again, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. What we're talking about are fats such as olive oil, again, a good quality extra virgin olive oil, avocados, and the fat from healthy animals. So that could be butter. That could be a very high quality, full fat dairy from a grass fed animal, whether that's a goat or a cow. That could be the fat in, the meat in and of itself. And again, we're going to talk about kind of food quality later on. We really do want, as high quality fat as we can. We're talking about starchy veggies. This is not a no carb diet. So we're talking about sweet potatoes, white potatoes, plantains, turnips, beets, all of those below the ground vegetables provide really healthy carbs, especially if you're working out, if you're an active individual and you're trying to be like on a no carb diet. Yeah, these are things that are going to really support your health. So these are the foods that we're really talking about when we say a whole foods, template.
Mm-hmm.
So we're crowding out things like fast food.
Mm-hmm.
We know what that means. Don't have to go into that. Soda, diet or regular. So we're talking about artificial sweeteners as well.
Yep.
We're talking about overly processed foods that, you look at the ingredients list and, you need like an hour to get through it and try to pronounce everything. We're not saying that you can't have lightly processed foods, right? We're not, maybe there are some plantain chips that are cooked in coconut oil. Okay, that's probably on the healthy spectrum. Like, we're not being dogmatic that if it comes in a bag or something, you can't have it. But yeah, let's work towards eating foods that maybe our great grandmothers would have recognized, that it wouldn't be foreign to us. So we're kind of starting to crowd out some of those processed foods. Again, we got to go back to that concept. You're starting where you are. Are we saying you have to go all in, throw out everything that you have and start over? Some people, may be able to do that depending on what's going on in their life.
Right.
If they decide to do that, I don't know very many people for whom that's a healthy path.
I would say it's a very small population based on my experience and even based on what I've read in some of the literature about the way that some people can do that and some people that is just not the way that they work.
Right.
I know I'm not that way. I definitely know my journey. I've had to do things slowly, and it's anything that is worth doing slowly. So take this slowly. This is you have time. It's interesting how people, it's like it was so many years that they got into this position, but they give themselves like 2 days to get out of it, so to speak, right? Yeah. They don't give themselves patience and time to really figure this out,
right?
To experiment and see what works. They just kind of want to do it yesterday. So just give yourself some time to make small changes, whether it's literally just eliminating diet soda. That was the first thing I did. Yeah. That was really helpful. And one of the first things I usually recommend to my clients, if that's where they're at, is to get the soda out. So just start there.
So a couple of reasons. Why would we say, pick a couple of areas that are one or two areas that you want to focus on maybe for a week or 10 days until it no longer feels stressful for you. Maybe you're subbing out, iced tea for Diet Coke. Well, that could be huge depending on how much of that you're consuming. Maybe that's the only change you make right out of the gate. Why is that? Because if you make this extremely stressful, we know how the human brain works. That we just don't do well under a state of feeling restricted and feeling stressed. So we want to make this feel as empowering and calm as possible. And going back to the notion, I think that people's hackles might be raised a little bit when you say, anything worth doing is worth doing slowly. Yeah. What we're really saying there is what's worth doing is worth doing once. Like, let's start building a healthier template that works for you, for your lifestyle, for your preferences, for your own body, so that once you build this template, and it doesn't take that long, but it's just going to depend on you. But once you build this template, you don't have to do this work over again. How many times have we started over, Jenny?
I mean,
countless for me. Yeah, countless times.
Before I've gone through this, like in a slow building foundation way, so many times, and most of my clients, they've come to me because they've yo-yo dieted for years and years
because they wanted to go fast,
right? And it's like, and I think of the analogy in my mind that's kind of coming up is like, if you're building a pyramid, you want to build a really solid base. Beautiful. Right? You're not going to go all the way up. Yeah, I love it. If you have that, it's going to be so vulnerable and fragile that the next
any stress,
crazy, thing that happens, which life happens, like there's stressors like people going into the hospital or this thing happening, and I've heard a lot of that, right? Where the first stressor that happens, it's like the first thing to go is the changes that they've made, right? Unless they have that really strong foundation and that long-term view of, hey, I can do this slowly.
And the danger, as you and I have discussed so many times, the danger there is not that, you can't, get back to eating, in a healthier way. The danger there is what that does to our sense of kind of self-efficacy and, empowerment in our own life. I mean, I would tell clients coming in, I'm not going to I'm not going to be your next failure, your next shame cycle. We are going to take the time to figure out what works for you. We're going to do this work once so that you have a template that's you can work within for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be your next failure, your next shame spiral.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that really impacted my sense of self for so long, because I would do these really extreme, get the weight off fast diets, lose the weight, but I didn't have any new habits to, rely upon. It's like they ended. Right? And it's funny, the clients that I'm working with, they'll tell me that friends or family members will ask them, when are you going to be done with this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a new concept
mm-hmm.
in our society that what we're working on here is nothing new. Mm-hmm. How did it become so revolutionary to eat real food? I mean, that's what I'd like to know. How is that so oddball?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
We could go
That's
through
a rabbit hole.
history,
Sorry.
right? We
yes,
could go through that, but,
for sure.
But we're basically just stating
mm-hmm.
that it's
yes.
important that you do this slowly, and that's how we want you to approach this.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more
sure.
about
Absolutely.
food quality, because
yep.
that's also important. When we say food quality, I'm sure some of you are like, well, what is quality food? What do you mean by that? Like,
does that just mean more expensive?
Yeah. Do I just pick it up at Dillon's? I'm trying to think of what it is locally.
Like a Whole Foods or something.
Kroger, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not everything you pick up
paycheck.
at Whole Foods
mm-hmm.
is necessarily a whole food, right? So let's talk about food quality. So let's talk about meats, right?
Right.
So you're going to want grass-fed beef and...
Grass-fed beef and lamb, pastured poultry, wild-caught seafood. It really matters. I mean, again, I think that there is really this ethos out there that when we're talking about these types of meats, that it's just a way to charge more. For them. But honestly, the nutrients that are in a piece of grass-fed beef versus conventionally raised beef, which has been fed, genetically modified soy protein and corn and grains, and, not to mention the quality of life for those animals. I mean, not great. The nutritional profile is absolutely different. The way it's going to react in your body is completely different. So I love this way of thinking about it. So we talked in the beginning, you are what you eat. It's not just that, it's you are what you ate,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So whatever, if you're eating beef, what were those cattle eating, right?
Yeah.
Were they eating grass that their body shifted into omega-3s, which is going to be anti-inflammatory in your body? Or were they eating genetically modified grains and soy that is going to be pro-inflammatory, that's going to impact your, all of those things are sprayed with Roundup. Mm. That's going to impact your gut microbiome, which impacts your immune system. And again, we can kind of think, what impact can that really have? It's huge. I mean, it really is. There's so many studies out there on, the impacts that this stuff has over the course of time. Of course, having one conventionally raised steak. I mean, this is not to get people feeling crazy about this stuff, right? And so I guess one thing I want to say about that is, if budget is an issue for you, and these foods definitely are, these types of meats are more expensive than the conventionally raised meats. If that is an issue for you, and if you're saying, well, I can't buy grass-fed beef, therefore I can't shift over to a Whole Foods diet. No. What you can do is just buy leaner cuts of meat.
Right.
That is an absolutely easy fix. Yep. That said, I would really encourage people to look at their priorities in terms of their budget. The average American spends about half of their food budget on food outside the home. Right. And I think we aren't really aware of that. Yep. But, you may honestly be in a place where you literally can't afford to buy this higher quality meat. So again, you're buying chicken breast, you're buying sirloin steak, you're buying the leanest ground beef that you can, and don't worry about it. You're still going to be eating so much healthier than if you were going and buying, off the dollar menu at McDonald's or whatever. So organic eggs, again, that's a completely different thing than a conventionally raised egg. We're talking about organic fruits and vegetables. So again, if budget is a concern for you, we would urge you to, and we'll link to it, the Environmental Working Group has a list. They have the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So the 15 fruits and vegetables that may not be as important to buy organic, that maybe it has a thick peel or something like that. And then the dozen that based on their research this year, they come out with a new list every year
Yep.
that it's important for you to get organic. So we'll link to that. But do the best you can based on your budget and be honest, looking at your priorities and how much you're actually eating out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember, back in college, I had a budget, and so it's just doing the next best thing.
Right.
The next best thing.
Sure.
And not making, doing these changes the stressor, right? So, because stress
Absolutely.
itself is inflammatory
Right.
and can cause a bunch of other health issues.
Sure.
So let's do the best we can with the least amount of stress.
Right.
And
And we're not
just
saying
keep it
don't eat
simple.
out.
Mhm.
Again, I mean, we definitely eat out.
Yep.
And if I am going to get meat, I'm going to get a leaner cut of meat
Yep.
when I'm out. And then I'm not going to worry about it.
Absolutely.
We are not dogmatic about this. So, we're definitely making improvements, but without getting stressed.
And
So.
and I think we share that to let you know that we're human.
Absolutely.
We're on our own journey as
Yep.
well, right? It's ongoing, and
Yeah.
that we're figuring things out as we
It's
go.
not that we don't have anything packaged or LaCroix waters
right?
here.
As we're
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
this.
Yeah.
Right? So we're
yeah,
humans.
for
We're
sure.
not completely dogmatic in that
No.
this is everything that you have to do
No.
100% of the time. But if you're moving towards this,
Mhm.
you are on the right path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we're always getting questions about macros, about calories, about food timing. If you do have, again, a performance goal, a fat loss goal, how do we structure our diet? Those things matter for sure. This matters more. Food quality matters more than calories. And
Yes.
that is a mindset shift that we really encourage you to be thinking about, because that is not the conventional wisdom.
Right.
So next episode, we are going to be talking about, again, how to kind of a starting point for structuring your diet, and then how to customize that based on your activity level, your goals, how you want to feel.
Yes.
So really, we would absolutely love and value questions from you. If you would be willing to either email those to us, and a link to our email is below, send us a message on Facebook, either a private message or post something on our Facebook page. That would be amazing. We would also so much appreciate if you got value from our podcast to leave us a rating and review in iTunes. And there's a link below that will take you directly to that, so you don't have to kind of fish around and figure that out.
Yeah, search for it.
But that would help us, share this message and get the conversation started, because our goal for this podcast is to give you the tools to empower you to make whatever changes you want in your life in a healthy way and feel good along the way. And that is such a paradigm shift, for most people. So, we would love to hear from you, hear your thoughts, hear how this landed for you, and what other questions you have.
Absolutely. So we look forward to the next time talking more about macros, calories, and food timing. But leave us a review, leave us some feedback, and we will be back next week.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.